Welcome to the Special Forces in World War II podcast, transmitting on this frequency. This broadcast is your dedicated channel for comprehensive intelligence regarding World War II Special Forces operations. Our transmissions encompass in-depth analysis of their strategic maneuvers, cutting-edge equipment, illustrious biographies, and an array of pertinent subjects. The orchestration of these transmissions is executed by the expert team of the Special Forces in World War II website, a squad deeply immersed in the historical theatre. For further insights, visual aids, and captured moments frozen in time, navigate to our virtual headquarters at worldwar2-soft.com. Your immersion into the front lines of knowledge awaits. Over and out. Welcome back to another episode of the Special Forces in World War II podcast, where we explore the bold, the daring, and the extraordinary tactics of the Special Forces in World War II that helped shape the outcome of the greatest conflict in modern history. I'm your host, Michael Wires, and as always, we're here to unravel the hidden stories behind the daring exploits of the Special Forces in World War II. This is part 2 of our series on Operation Archway, the final campaign of the Special Air Service in Northwest Europe. In part 1, we followed the Special Air Service through March 1945, from the crossing of the Rhine to the rolling farmlands of northern Germany. Operating ahead of British airborne and armoured divisions, they launched raids, seized villages, and shielded flanks from German counterattacks. Along the way, they suffered ambushes, endured mechanical failures, and relied on speed, deception, and initiative to stay alive. Now, in part 2, we continue the story from April into May 1945. These are the final weeks of the war. We follow the Special Air Service into Celle, through Bergen-Belsen, and across the River Elbe. We witness their final combat engagements, skirmishes, surrenders, and a rapid dash to secure the Danish frontier. We end with the moment of victory and the quiet return home. This is the last chapter in a long campaign, and for many, it comes with no celebration, only exhaustion, reflection, and silence. But let's start at the beginning. On Easter Sunday, April 1st, 1945, C Troop of 1 Special Air Service links up with the echelon of the 11th Hussars, Prince Albert's Own, between Ahaus and Heek. Ahead, the 7th Armoured Division continues its rapid northward advance through Bergsteinfurt towards Rhine. Resistance stiffens as German forces defend the crossings on the River Ems. By midday, Captain Ian Wellstead's troop moves out along quiet roads. In most villages, white flags hang from windows and doorways. Civilians in untouched hamlets wave handkerchiefs as the column passes. The atmosphere is subdued but watchful. At Rhine, German resistance is stronger. The 11th Hussars swing east in an attempt to outflank the defenders. Wellstead receives orders to move forward and support. The jeeps pass long queues of parked lorries filled with infantry. At Neuenkirchen, Wellstead turns east into open farmland. Near Hauenhorst, his troop rejoins the 11th Hussars. 3 troops of the armoured car squadron are tasked with reconnaissance missions towards the River Ems via Messum. Wellstead detaches 1 jeep section to accompany each troop. Upon entering Messum, they discover the town is already in Allied hands. The 11th Armoured Division took it 2 days earlier. While waiting for new orders, the men gather in the local pub and enjoy a rare moment of rest with a few mugs of German beer. Soon afterwards, the 11th Hussars, along with the attached Special Air Service sections, cross the River Ems using a bridge east of Messum. Johnny Cooper's section heads northwest towards Rhine. Headquarters and Lieutenant Tony Trower's sections push north through Elbe to scout the Dortmund-Ems Canal. Shortly after, a jeep arrives bearing Major Hardwick, liaison officer to the 21st Army Group. He instructs Captain Wellsted to return to Messum. Together, they attempt to locate the forward elements, but find they have already advanced. They continue to Bergen-Belsen. At Bergen-Belsen, they encounter tanks and infantry from the 11th Armored Division. A Royal Tank Regiment officer stops them and reports the loss of 3 tanks. He suspects a fresh German counterattack is developing. Believing the armored cars have not passed this way, Wellsted and Hardwick turn back. On the return to Elbe, Wellsted notices fresh tire tracks veering into a field. He follows them and finds 2 of his sections bogged down. The armored cars are stuck in soft ground and cannot proceed. At that moment, 3 German Me-109s fighter planes scream overhead. The aircraft strafe the main road near Bergen-Belsen. The Special Air Service jeeps remain hidden beneath tree cover and avoid damage. Unable to extract the vehicles, Wellsted contacts the 11th Hussars and withdraws the remaining jeeps to a farmstead outside Elbe. The troop prepares to spend the night under canvas. Later, Wellsted searches for Captain Johnny Cooper. He finds his section pinned down near Rhine. An SS roadblock covers the route, protected by snipers concealed in the surrounding woods. Cooper is managing the engagement. Wellsted returns to Elbe to regroup. That evening, Captain Fraser McCluskey, the Padre, arrives at the farmhouse. He prepares an Easter communion in the largest room. The space is dimly lit by a single oil lamp. The farmer's family sits quietly in one corner, watching. A maroon cloth with the Special Air Service badge is spread across the table. Outside, artillery thumps in the distance. The men bow their heads and sing hymns of resurrection. Elsewhere, 2 Special Air Service remains on the northern flank following the fall of Münster. The regiment enjoys a rare day of rest in Osterwijk. It is now under command of the 8th Corps. All elements of Frankfurt are now concentrated north of Minden. Headquarters is established at Greven. From this position, the Special Air Service is placed in direct support of the continuing Allied advance across northwestern Germany. On the morning of April 2nd, 1945, Major Harry Pote arrives at Elbe. John Tonkin's D Troop is taking over operations. Captain Ian Wellsted's C Troop is ordered to withdraw for rest. Together with Peter Middleton, Wellsted scouts farms near Rhine for potential billets. They are surprised to find the buildings already occupied. Groups of disarmed German soldiers are waiting to surrender. Wellsted instructs Peter to escort several prisoners to the nearest prisoner of war cage by jeep. The remainder are ordered to march there on foot. Peter shuttles back and forth to assist. Once the full troop arrives, they occupy the farmstead without difficulty. Later, Captain Alex Muirhead's A Squadron joins them. His men are also rotating out of combat. Reports of Waffen-SS activity near Rhine prompt a decision. Both squadrons will shift west of the River Ems. Captain Muirhead and Captain Johnny Cooper reconnoiter new harbour sites between Elbe and Messum. The units relocate. Jeeps are hidden in barns. Each man finally enjoys a proper bed. Wireless contact is maintained with Major Pote and Captain Muirhead. On April 3rd, 1945, one of Johnny Cooper's men uncovers a buried cache behind a former Nazi official's house. Inside are crates of wine and spirits. The men are allowed to enjoy the discovery. Morale improves. Later that day, Wellsted and Peter Middleton drive several displaced persons to Neuenkirchen. They take a wrong turn and nearly stray into contested Rhine. They return to the billet just before dusk. April 4th, 1945, marks a shift across the front. American forces complete the encirclement of the Ruhr. The 6th Airborne Division secures Münster and British commandos approach Osnabrück. The Special Air Service remains at rest but prepares to redeploy. That afternoon, new orders arrive. 8th Corps has reached the River Weser. One Special Air Service receives a new mission. Their reconnaissance role for the 6th Airborne Division ends. The regiment is now attached to the 11th Armored Division. This reassignment reflects changing priorities. The British advance is accelerating. More open terrain east of the Weser favors rapid armored thrusts. The Special Air Service is expected to support this momentum. The regiment is ordered to advance southeast to Frottheim near Minden. A troop leads the movement, followed by D Troop. Wellstead's C Troop brings up the rear. Vehicle repairs cause delays. Wellstead leaves Johnny Cooper behind to bring up stragglers. The march is slow and difficult. Muddy roads and poor visibility hinder progress. Breakdowns and skids are frequent. Near Osnabrück, a German fighter strafes the column. D Troop is caught in the open. Several men are hit. Return fire brings the aircraft down. Casualties are taken to rear medical posts. Wellstead regroups his troop and continues to Frottheim. Finding no other Special Air Service units present, he sends Lieutenant Tony Trower to secure billets. A guard is left to wait for Johnny Cooper's section. Wellstead proceeds alone to Hiller and locates Frankforce headquarters. He receives instructions to return to Frottheim and report the next morning for wireless repairs. That night, the troop settles into local farms. Lieutenant Trower takes over sentry duty at the crossroads. Around midnight, the watch ends. The men rest quietly in haylofts and stables. The silence is broken only by distant artillery. On the morning of April 5, 1945, Captain Ian Wellstead rises early. He drives to Hiller and has the wireless set repaired. By midday, he returns to Frottheim. Not long after, Captain Johnny Cooper and his section, including Sergeant Tom Rennie, arrive and settle into a nearby farm. Tension rises as reports of Waffen-SS activity circulate. A German lorry ambush nearby suggests enemy troops are still operating in the area. The men remain on alert all day, but no attack comes. Later, Sergeant Maggie McGinn's Jeep suffers clutch trouble. Sergeant Jack Terry's vehicle remains damaged. Both Jeeps are sent to the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers Workshop in Hiller for repairs. That evening, Wellstead is summoned to Frankforce headquarters. The headquarters has relocated to Eistrup, near Osnabrück. A planning conference begins. British commandos have crossed the River Weser at Stolzenau. Engineers hope to bridge the river by dawn. The plan is ambitious. Once across, Special Air Service units will operate alongside the Inns of Court Regiment, the reconnaissance arm of the 11th Armored Division. Captain Alex Muirhead will support a troop pushing north along the eastern riverbank. Major John Tonkin will support a parallel advance to the east. Wellstead's C Troop is kept in reserve. Their mission, if triggered, is a coup de main to seize a bridge over either the River Lane or Aller. Intelligence suggests the Germans may attempt demolition. Lieutenant Colonel Brian Franks, Major Harry Pote, and Wellstead explore options well into the night. Swimming across the river to remove charges is dismissed as impractical. A better plan is to approach via woodland tracks, cross, and overwhelm the demolition party before they act. Another idea is floated, using a captured German staff car to pass as an enemy unit. The plan will rely on surprise, boldness, and German disorganization. At 6:30 on April 6, 1945, the troop assembles. Jack Terry and Sergeant McGinn remain in the workshops. The rest drive to Hiller to complete resupply. By mid-morning, C Troop departs for Uchte, west of Stolzenau. En route, Captain Wellstead crashes into an ambulance, damaging his radiator. Later, Geordie Cunningham's Jeep is wrecked in a separate incident. His crew escape with only minor injuries. A former German gunner, named Owen, replaces Geordie as Wellstead's rear gunner. At 16:30, the troop reaches Frankforce positions at Stolzenau. The commandos are pinned and unable to expand the bridgehead. Engineers decide to shift the crossing. A new point is selected at Peterschegen. That evening, Frankforce headquarters relocates again, this time to Melle. At dusk, Wellstead's troop crosses the Weser on a pontoon bridge. The jeeps grind north and find harbour near the village of Winheim. Orders are vague, and the night is restless. At first light on April 7, 1945, Wellstead joins Major Pote's order group. The Inns of Court are to push northeast through Windheim and Rehburg. John Tonkin will support the advance guard. Alex Muirhead is assigned flank protection. Wellstead's troop remains in reserve, his coup de main task still pending. He returns to the billet and lies down briefly in the hayloft. A few minutes later, Lieutenant Colonel Franks arrives. Wellstead, still covered in straw, rushes out to meet him. Afterwards, he visits each section. He chats with Davies, Backhouse, Murray, and Brown. The men rib him good-naturedly for mixing up their names. Just before lunch, Mike McNaught arrives with a sudden change of orders. The bridge seizure is cancelled. Wellstead's troop is needed elsewhere. Time is short. The mission has changed again. On April 8, 1945, Captain Ian Wellstead attends the morning orders group at 7:30. The Inns of Court Regiment is tasked with pushing northeast through Windheim and Rehburg. Major John Tonkin's squadron is ordered to support their forward movement, while Captain Alex Muirhead's troop covers the exposed left flank. Wellstead's troop remains in reserve, on standby for a possible coup de main operation aimed at securing the bridge over the River Aller. With no immediate tasking, Wellstead returns to the hayloft above his billet and manages an hour of sleep. He is still brushing straw from his uniform when Lieutenant Colonel Brian Franks appears, confirming that the bridge seizure remains under consideration. Slightly embarrassed, Wellstead scrambles down to receive him and quickly inspects his men. He visits the sections, exchanging words with troopers Davies, Backhouse, Murray, and Brown. They rib him gently for still mixing up their names after all these months. As the men begin preparing lunch, Lieutenant Mike McNaught arrives from the front with sudden new orders. A new mission has emerged. The bridge assault has been cancelled. Again. Captain Johnny Cooper is instructed to have C Troop ready to move at once. Meanwhile, McNaught takes Wellstead to Rehburg, where Major Harry Pote and an officer of the Inns of Court deliver a fresh briefing. Major Tonkin's squadron is already pushing towards Nienburg. Further west, Muirhead's troop is encountering resistance in woodland terrain. Wellstead is to support a reconnaissance patrol aiming to probe northeast, towards the road connecting Nienburg and Neustadt. It is assumed Neustadt is in Allied hands, possibly held by the 15th Scottish Infantry Division, but confirmation is lacking. Wellstead's jeeps roll out through Schneeren, overtaking columns of paratroopers moving quietly through hedgerows. At a fork in the wooded tracks northeast of the road, they link up with a dingo scout car from the Inns of Court. The main armoured car and two dingoes have already moved towards Nienburg, believing their mission complete. In the distance, a flash and a coil of smoke indicate contact. The dingo operator confirms enemy presence in woodland to the left. Wellstead gives the order to follow. Fire will commence on a green very light and cease on white. C Troop fans out and advances. They burst from the trees onto open ground bordered by young forest. No enemy is visible. Wellstead fires the green flare. The Vickers guns roar to life, raking the tree line with tracer and incendiary rounds. Still, no return fire. A white flare is launched, and Wellstead, Thompson in hand, leads a charge into the woods. In the first ditch lies a German soldier with a Panzerfaust, feigning death. A sergeant from the Inns of Court stands over him. A swift kick proves the man is alive. He surrenders in fear and is taken prisoner. The troop pushes deeper into the brush. Wellstead shouts surrender commands in German, firing into suspected positions. Lieutenant Trower advances with a Bren. On the left, Corporal Jack Terry moves up through the trees. A cache of bicycles, camouflaged with gas capes, is discovered and destroyed. Suddenly, fire erupts from the rear. A Panzerfaust is launched. Captain Cooper arrives at the road and sees the ambush unfold. The Germans are dug in along the ditches. One jeep is destroyed. Jeep number 7, its wreckage burning at the roadside. Trooper Taffy Glide lies motionless, killed in action. Rennie's jeep is hit. The crew thrown clear. Duvivier's gun crew returns fire, killing the Panzerfaust operator mid-shot. Major Wellstead orders Cooper to prepare a withdrawal. The plan is to break contact in coordination with the Inns of Court vehicles. Middleton is assigned to recover Wellstead once the retreat begins. The remaining jeeps fall back, covering one another. 2 German prisoners are placed on bonnets, held at gunpoint. Peter Middleton pauses to pick up Wellstead, who mounts a .50 Browning and fires into the woods as they pull back. The withdrawal halts at a road junction. 10 jeeps remain, 2 dingoes, 1 armored car. Glide is confirmed dead. Rennie is wounded in the hip. Backhouse has taken a round to the ankle. Corporal Reg Seekings spots 2 Germans approaching. McNaught reports movement in the woods, barely 100 meters away. Wellstead orders Swag Jemson to prepare the mortar. 3 times he checks. Jemson delays. At last, the 2-inch mortar opens up. Bren's and Vickers blaze. The woods fall silent. Wellstead calls again for surrender. There is no answer. Moments later, heavy fire erupts from the southwest, possibly the 6th Airborne, but this cannot be confirmed. The armored car tries to raise friendly forces over the radio. No contact is made. Corporal Alec Hay brings word from Wayneman. 2 armored vehicles have entered the wood from Schneeren. Major Pote believes they are British. They are not. 2 German armored personnel carriers emerge and open fire. The first is destroyed by a 37mm round from the armored car. Pote cheers. The second is also hit. The crew bails out and scatter. But the fight is not over. As Wellstead inspects the line, Davies lies wounded at Rennie's jeep. He jokes with his last breath that Wellstead has finally got his name right. At Duvivier's position, more German infantry appear, this time in strength. Wellstead is hit in the leg. He drops and returns fire, but cannot reload. A second shot hits his other leg. Crawling for cover, he is found by Dixie Dean and dragged back under fire. Trower provides covering fire. Swag Jemson and Dougie Ferguson try to reach Davies. Ferguson is killed. Wellstead is loaded into McNaught's jeep, bleeding heavily. Owen, wounded in both arms, is placed in another. Pote orders a full breakout. Jeeps form up behind the armored car. The column breaks through. At the top of a hill, a wrecked lorry blocks the path. Once cleared, the jeeps escape. After 2 kilometers, they halt. Pote checks the map. Wellstead asks for morphine. Then the convoy pushes on, bumping along a rutted farm track. Wellstead loses consciousness. When he wakes, he is on a stretcher beside a British half-track. Middleton has slipped 4 bottles of wine under his blanket. At the advanced dressing station, tea is served. Captain Muirhead visits. That night, the wounded are evacuated to a casualty clearing station near Elbe, close to the farmhouse where Captain Fraser McCluskey had held the Easter service days before. The day proved to be a costly one. 2 Special Air Service troopers are dead. 2 more are mortally wounded. 5 are injured and 4 jeeps are lost. The enemy loses 11 dead and 2 armored vehicles. With Captain Wellstead being wounded, Captain Johnny Cooper assumes command of C Troop. Elsewhere, Frankforce headquarters relocates to a farm southwest of Lochem. Following the rapid Allied advance, 2 Special Air Service is reassigned by 8th Corps to civil military duties, particularly the identification and detention of Nazi officials. The nature of the campaign is shifting. The end now appears within reach. On April 9, 1945, elements of the 2nd Special Air Service enter the town of Nienburg, ahead of the main Allied formations. Operating forward of the line of advance, the unit detains several political functionaries, including the local Ortsgruppenführer, a senior Nazi Party official. Their swift action ensures that key personnel are taken into custody before they can escape or organize further resistance. The Special Air Service stays there the next day too. By April 11, 1945, Frankforce headquarters is on the move again. The new command post is established just south of Esperke, positioning the operational structure for deeper penetrations into central Germany. The pace of the Allied advance is increasing, and Special Air Service units are at the forefront of efforts to secure strategic towns before organized German defenses can reform. In the early hours of April 12, 1945, the 2nd Special Air Service reaches the town of Celle, situated north of Hanover. They arrive at 5 a.m., again ahead of the main forces of the 15th Scottish Infantry Division. Their mission is twofold: to secure key National Socialist personnel and to liberate any Allied prisoners of war who may be held in the area. Shortly after arrival, Captain Joe Patterson, the regiment's medical officer, is approached by a local civilian. The man, speaking with urgency, informs Patterson that serious casualties are suffering without medical assistance at a concentration camp on the outskirts of the town. The term Konzentrationslager is not yet fully understood by the British, and Patterson proceeds to investigate. Meanwhile, the Special Air Service secures the town's Nazi administrative center and assumes full control. For the next 3 days, they remain the primary occupying force until the arrival of follow-on British formations. During this time, they detain numerous officials and establish a functioning local administration under Allied supervision. At 900 hours, No. 1 Troop crosses the River Aller via a partially destroyed girder bridge. Though impassable to heavier vehicles, the broken span still offers a narrow opportunity for the jeeps. A gap in the walkway is deemed just wide enough to clear at speed. Against expectation, one of the jeeps successfully jumps the breach, landing hard on the far side. The small force secures the approach and, in the process, discovers a wine cellar. Declaring it under Allied control with a length of tape, they load their jeep and distribute the contents among nearby troops. Later that day, Royal Engineers arrive to construct a temporary bridge. One sergeant, reportedly under the influence of some of the brandy, provides exuberant yet erratic hand signals during the procedure. Despite the unconventional guidance, the bridge is successfully positioned across its pre-marked anchor points. Once across the Aller, No. 1 Troop pushes east and secures the grounds of the German Chemical Warfare School. From there, a reconnaissance is launched along the Boy-Winsen Road. The area yields no immediate resistance, but the patrol detains 5 members of the Kriminalpolizei, the Nazi Criminal Investigation Service, along with several prominent National Socialist officials. These individuals are secured pending the arrival of elements from the Corps Infantry Brigade. Later that morning, Captain Patterson and a small detachment from the 2nd Special Air Service reach the camp reported earlier. The perimeter is screened by a tall wall of woven matting, concealing the interior from outside view, yet the stench alone signals what lies within. Upon entry, the men encounter a scene of devastation beyond comprehension. The compound floor is carpeted in layers of straw and compacted excrement. In the filth lie scores of skeletal inmates, barely alive, their faces hollow and devoid of expression. Most cannot speak. They simply stare. Some are already dead. Others are dying in silence. The scale of neglect and suffering defies belief. Captain Patterson sends a message to brigade headquarters in Britain. The signal reads, "Tell England that Nazi concentration camp to be seen to be believed. 200 French maquisards dead or dying from starvation, beating, etc." The unit has discovered one of the satellite camps of Bergen-Belsen. Later that evening, a brief exchange of fire with Waffen-SS troops north of Celle confirms that despite the surrender of the town, the surrounding area remains active and contested. The Special Air Service maintains defensive positions and prepares for further resistance. On April 13, 1945, 2 Special Air Service rests in the town of Celle, following the rapid occupation and the previous day's reconnaissance and firefight north of the River Aller. Though formally a pause in operations, the day is not without incident. Inside the garage of a recently detained Nazi Party official, the men discover a gleaming Porsche sports car. Temptation quickly triumphs over discipline. With petrol supplies low, several bottles of brandy from the previously liberated wine cellar are siphoned to coax the engine into life. After a brief search for proper fuel, the vehicle is driven on a spirited circuit of the town. The victory lap becomes a memorable footnote before the arrival of military government authorities. Later that day, an infantry officer takes an enthusiastic interest in the Porsche. In keeping with Special Air Service tradition, an informal negotiation follows. The car changes hands in return for items more useful to the squadron. The transaction, though unorthodox, is both financially beneficial and wholly in character. The day's levity, however, gives way to renewed concern by evening. Reports arrive of enemy armored activity south of Celle, 5 kilometers southeast of Celle's center. Tanks and half-tracks are believed to belong to cut-off German formations, displaced by the Allied advance. The area sits near the boundary between American and British operational sectors. The previous night, American units reportedly made contact with these German elements, but the information is not passed to British 8th Corps. The lapse raises the risk of confusion, accidental engagement, or the survival of enemy pockets in what was believed secured territory. By April 14, 1945, 2 Special Air Service resumes operations after the brief respite in Celle. The day's objective is to locate remnants of German artillery Fernsprech detachments, artillery signals, and forward observation elements suspected to be operating southeast of Celle. Patrols sweep through the villages of Bockelskamp and Flakenhorst, both found deserted and clear of enemy personnel. Yet the reconnaissance yields an unusual discovery. In the nearby river, several abandoned German half-tracks are located, waterlogged and inoperable. Among the wreckage, the Special Air Service uncover an intact American armored car. The vehicle is identified as a light armored car armed with a 37mm gun. Once recovered and tested, the vehicle is added to the squadron's strength. Its arrival provides a welcome increase in firepower, particularly valuable in confronting fortified positions or engaging light armor. Coming just a day after the joyful acquisition of a Porsche sports car, the find boosts both morale and combat capability. On April 15, 1945, Major Harry Pote, commanding officer of the 1st Special Air Service Squadron during Operation Archway, receives a new assignment. British forward units are being informed by surrendering German troops of a prison camp named Bergen-Belsen. They claim that a typhus epidemic is spreading rapidly and that the Guards are willing to hand the camp over to the Allies. Major Pote selects one of his most experienced officers, Major John Tonkin, of a troop, to lead the reconnaissance. Among those accompanying him are Captain Cecil Jock Riding and Sergeant Duncan Riddler, a fluent German speaker. The patrol moves cautiously along a sandy track through pine woods. Sergeant Riddler later recalls the scene with clarity. The jeeps advance steadily without stopping. After a short distance, the trees give way to a surprisingly well-maintained junction, clean gravel, concrete curbs, upright military signposts. German soldiers wait by the road, standing passively. One of the Germans directs the British towards the camp's entrance. As the jeeps approach the gates of Bergen-Belsen, the men expect a small, conventional prisoner of war compound. They leave the vehicles under watch and proceed inside. The outer compound appears deserted. Low buildings flank wide dirt tracks and shallow concrete drains. Watchtowers loom overhead, manned but passive. At first glance, it resembles a military convalescence center. That illusion vanishes the moment they pass through the inner gates. The patrol dismounts and advances on foot in small groups. Along the drains and beside mounds of discarded clothing, bodies lie sprawled and motionless. Behind 3-meter-high wire fencing, survivors move with ghost-like slowness. Gates are locked. A silent crowd gathers. The soldiers are confronted by a scene so terrible that none speak. The prisoners are skeletal, their faces drained of emotion, unable even to register hope. Sergeant Riddler speaks to them in English, French, and German. He tells them the British are here and the camp is liberated. In response, one inmate steps forward and raises a tattooed wrist. The soldiers begin distributing their rations. Biscuits pushed through the fence, but the desperate crowd surges forward. Several collapse where they stand. A short time later, a group of around 50 young women marches into view, each carrying a bucket and wearing the yellow Star of David. An SS female guard escorts them. These prisoners appear in better condition, possibly selected for labor or medical experiments. The patrol stops them, deposits the rest of their rations into a bucket, and sends them back to their barracks. The SS woman is dismissed, and the British formally take control. Even hardened veterans are unprepared for what they witness. Sergeant Vic Long later stands at the edge of a mass grave. It was about 3.5 meters wide, he says. I don't know how deep. The bodies were a couple of feet from the top. The stench hangs heavy over the camp. The guards didn't cause trouble, he adds. None of them spoke English. None looked ashamed. Soon, elements of 63rd Anti-Tank Regiment, 11th Armored Division, arrive under Lieutenant Colonel Richard Taylor. As the Special Air Service continue their inspection, Sergeant Riddler remains at the entrance to interpret. Lieutenant Colonel Taylor confronts SS Hauptsturmführer Josef Kramer, the camp commandant, and demands his name and surrender. Riddler facilitates the exchange. Kramer confirms that no British prisoners of war are held inside. A delousing team is already operating in one of the huts. Before departure, the Special Air Service patrol is processed with anti-lice powder. Their mission complete, the men return to their jeeps and withdraw. Later that evening, Frankfurt's headquarters relocates to Scharnhorst. From this forward base, Special Air Service squadrons fan out across the region, advancing in wide arcs to the north and east. Their orders are to secure roads, probe German defenses, and take control of strategic villages before organized resistance can be re-established. By April 16, 1945, 2 Special Air Service continues its forward reconnaissance. Northeast of Bargfeld, a jeep patrol encounters enemy fire near the village of Gerdau. German light machine guns open up from concealed positions. The patrol returns fire and pushes forward, only to discover that Gerdau is defended by a sizable German force. The presence of 88mm anti-tank guns confirms it as a well-prepared defensive position. Recognizing the danger, the patrol withdraws to Barnsen without loss. That night, the entire squadron, along with force headquarters, harbors in the village, awaiting further orders. On April 17, 1945, 2 Special Air Service makes contact with forward elements of the British 11th Armored Division at Eimke. This link-up marks a key moment in the coordination between fast-moving reconnaissance patrols and the heavier armor formations advancing towards the River Elbe. That same morning, the reconnaissance sweep continues. Gerdau and Gresselisestedt are confirmed clear of German forces. The route remains under constant surveillance. Special Air Service patrols maintain pressure on enemy remnants retreating east. Later in the afternoon, the village of Bergen-Belsen is secured in a joint operation with infantry from the 15th Scottish Division. Churchill tanks provide close support. The engagement results in the capture of a significant number of German troops, breaking one of the last pockets of resistance in the area. During the advance, 2 Special Air Service jeeps become bogged down near Bergen-Belsen. The spring terrain remains treacherous, especially for vehicles moving off-road. Both jeeps are successfully recovered by Sherman tanks from the Light Aid Detachment. April 18, 1945, begins with 1 Special Air Service entering the town of Lüneburg alongside 11th Armored Division. Their mission is to search for senior members of the SS believed to be hiding among the civilian population. That morning, Lieutenant Dennis Weinman drops off a roll of camera film at a chemist in town. Among the negatives are photographs taken days earlier at Bergen-Belsen. A few days later, military policemen inform him that the chemist is visibly shaken. Lieutenant Weinman returns to the shop and explains what the photographs depict. He describes what he saw at the camp: the emaciated inmates, the pit of corpses, the silent suffering. The chemist, listening in disbelief, denies the truth of it. He insists that Germans could never commit such atrocities. The reality remains too difficult for him to accept. Elsewhere, C Troop of 1st Special Air Service is halted on the outskirts of Lüneburg, waiting for a tank engagement inside the town to conclude. While the vehicles are stationary, Warrant Officer Reg Seekings surveys the terrain. He notices a concealed hollow that appears ideal for a Panzerfaust team. Investigating on foot, he discovers it is indeed a prepared anti-tank site. Nearby, shallow trenches conceal several teenage boys. They are members of the Hitler Youth. The boys are frightened, poorly armed, and quickly surrender. The Special Air Service takes them into custody without resistance, and the advance resumes once the tanks secure the town. That afternoon, 2 Special Air Service is redeployed northeast of Belsen. As the push towards the Elbe accelerates, the unit returns to its familiar role ahead of the main formation. During one forward patrol, Lieutenant Laws rides a captured German motorcycle. The vehicle strikes a rut and throws him from the saddle. He sustains injuries, but survives. The event typifies the Special Air Service approach. If it moves, it can be used. On April 19, 1945, Frankforce headquarters shifts east to Bruchtorf. The move reflects the tightening Allied focus as operations converge on the River Elbe, now the final natural barrier before the collapse of northern Germany. That morning in Lüneburg, 1 Special Air Service remains active alongside field security sections. Their task is to identify suspected Nazi officials concealed among the local civilian population. The work is methodical. Pre-dawn house searches target addresses linked to the party, the SS, or high-ranking Wehrmacht personnel. During one of these operations, Trooper Peter Middleton engages in a brief exchange of fire with an armed suspect. Middleton wounds the man and secures the premises. The search confirms the presence of military documents, and the wounded man is identified as a former party official. Other raids that day yield mixed results. Several establishments suspected of harboring fugitives turn out to be brothels. Inside, the Special Air Service men encounter not German deserters or SS officers, but a collection of British NCOs, sergeants, and staff sergeant majors from rear units. These men, clearly in violation of military orders, are escorted out and given a sharp warning. Farther east, 2 Special Air Service spearheads the advance from Bergen-Belsen toward the Elbe in concert with the reconnaissance regiment of the 15th Scottish Division. The thrust splits along 2 axes, one column heading for Breitz, the other for Nietzsche. Contact is re-established with the 11th Armored Division at Nizza, a key junction point in the Allied axis of advance. A reconnaissance patrol from the regiment pushes east to the town of Bleckede, perched on the west bank of the Elbe. There it encounters German forces holding a bridgehead across the river. No firefight ensues. The enemy remains in position, defensive and alert. The patrol returns to Nizza alongside the Scottish Reconnaissance Regiment and beds down for the night. The approach to Breitz proves especially difficult. Thick woods and poor sightlines dominate the terrain. Spring conditions render the ground soft and treacherous, making movement hazardous for heavier units. Here, the tactical flexibility of Special Air Service jeeps again proves decisive, able to move, observe, and disengage with speed, even in terrain that could bog down tanks. Between April 20th and April 28th, 1945, 1 and 2 Special Air Service enter a rare period of rest as plans for crossing the Elbe are finalized. Frankforce headquarters remains in position at Bruchtorf. The squadrons, worn from weeks of continuous operations, take the opportunity to recover and refit. During this period, Major Hibbert's troop, part of the 2nd Special Air Service and previously detached for Operation Keystone in the Netherlands, rejoins the main force. His men settle at Edelsdorf. Nearby, Major P. L. J. Lepore Power's squadron, battle-hardened from the push through Münster and Wesel, rests at Bohndorf. For the first time in weeks, both combat elements of 2 Special Air Service are brought together under a single command. The German forces maintaining the bridgehead at Bleckede reportedly withdraw across the Elbe sometime during this interval. Whether they are driven back by pressure or allowed to slip away unnoticed is unclear. No contact is recorded, and the West Bank is later found deserted. This pause in forward movement is not only operational, but political. The Elbe marks the edge of the Allied advance into northern Germany, a boundary negotiated with the Soviet Union. With Russian forces pushing westward, the Allies hesitate to cross too far, mindful of political lines as much as military ones. Discussions at higher levels are still ongoing, particularly regarding access to ports and control of strategic towns near the Elbe's mouth. On April 29, 1945, at precisely 1500 hours, Major Hibbert's troop of 2 Special Air Service crosses the River Elbe under fire near Schnackenbeck. This marks their entry into Operation Enterprise and places them among the first Allied troops to secure a bridgehead on the river's eastern bank. As the jeeps reach the far side, German machine gun and mortar fire erupts from concealed positions. Among the first to fall is Private Robert Boxall, a young trooper who had celebrated his 23rd birthday only weeks earlier. His death is the day's first loss and not the last. Once consolidated on the east bank, the squadron endures intermittent shell fire directed at the crossing site from German guns near Schnackenbeck. Fortunately, no further casualties are reported. Captain Mackey's troop, now rejoined with Major Hibbert's squadron, is ordered to conduct a reconnaissance sweep east toward Gulzow. Simultaneously, other sections move toward Juliusburg and Krukow. Entering Gulzow from 2 directions, the patrols encounter no opposition, a sign that German resistance in the immediate sector is crumbling. A further probe along the road to Wangelau leads to a brief clash. A German light flak gun is spotted just outside Gulzow. The Special Air Service jeeps open fire immediately. The gun crew scatters. Advancing cautiously, the squadron identifies 3 additional 105mm field guns positioned to the right of the road. These are engaged with coordinated mortar and Vickers K fire. The gunners flee. The British destroy the abandoned pieces, removing a significant threat to the bridgehead's flank. The most serious encounter of the day unfolds further along the line. Captain Morris's troop, advancing toward Leutau, runs into a well-prepared SS ambush. As the jeeps approach a river crossing, artillery fire begins. One jeep takes a wooded track, to flank the suspected position. A single shell finds its mark, destroying the vehicle and killing all aboard, including Captain Morris. The remaining vehicles fall back. Mortar teams begin a slow, systematic barrage. Range corrections are made, and eventually the fire silences the enemy gun. When the Special Air Service reach the position, they find the German crew either dead or fled. The field piece had been expertly aligned to cover the track, the only visible approach through the woods. Elsewhere on the 29th, one Special Air Service links up with elements of the 6th Airborne Division. Their objective is urgent, a dash to Lübeck, ahead of advancing Soviet forces. The goal is strategic, securing northern Germany and Denmark under British, rather than Soviet control. The collapse of German resistance in the north continues. Thousands of enemy troops attempt to surrender to the Western Allies, fearing Soviet captivity. Improvised prisoner-of-war cages are set up in parks and open fields. The scenes are chaotic. Some prisoners push their way through the wire to avoid waiting in queues. The Special Air Service helps manage the flood, disarming prisoners and organizing their transfer to larger holding facilities. On April 30th, 1945, Frankforce headquarters follows over the Elbe, accompanied by Major Lepoerpower's squadron. The force pushes to Juliusburg and then establishes a new forward base at Celle, deepening the Allied footprint east of the river. Operational activity intensifies. Captain Mackey's troop turns north to reconnoiter Hamwood and Worth, while Major Druce's troop continues the advance towards Schwarzenbeck. Though the pace is quick, pockets of resistance remain. Scattered Wehrmacht and SS elements continue to operate in the area, requiring caution during each patrol. By late afternoon, a dramatic shift in the local situation begins to take shape. Two German officers, detained near Schwarzenbeck, request to negotiate a surrender. One explains that he represents a battalion of SS troops seeking to capitulate. Major Barkworth, intelligence officer of the 2nd Special Air Service, escorts the officer to Wangerlau to meet the SS battalion commander. There, the atmosphere is tense. The commander refuses to surrender, possibly out of fear, pride, or strict adherence to previous orders. Barkworth proceeds to the divisional headquarters at Pertrau to seek confirmation or clarification. He receives none. Confusion reigns. Meanwhile, far to the south, in a Berlin bunker, Adolf Hitler takes his own life. Though few in the field yet know it, this moment accelerates the disintegration of German command authority throughout the Reich. Back in Wangerlau, the impasse ends not with negotiation, but with firepower. A British Marine commando unit, supported by artillery, launches a direct assault. Outmatched and without support, the SS battalion finally surrenders. 8 officers and 56 other ranks are taken prisoner. The day ends with British troops firmly in control of the region between Celle and Schwarzenbeck. The Elbe has been crossed. The final push toward total German surrender has begun. As May begins, the war in Europe enters its final phase. On May 1st, 1945, with the bridgehead across the Elbe firmly held and crossings secured, the 11th Armored Division initiates its night movement across the river, advancing northward toward Hamburg. In support, 2 Special Air Service continues its role on the flanks, patrolling ahead of the main body. Captain McGregor and Lieutenant Robertson lead reconnaissance patrols operating west of Schwarzenbeck, skirting the dense Sachsenwald. These quiet, cautious missions through wooded terrain mark the final days of operational reconnaissance by the regiment in Germany. The following day, May 2nd, patrols push further west toward Bargteheide, drawing closer to the Hamburg outskirts. Resistance continues to dissolve. With each village passed and junction secured, the likelihood of contact diminishes. On May 3rd, 1945, Frankforce headquarters relocates first to Lütjensee, then later, the same day, to Grosshansdorf. From here, the force awaits further instructions while maintaining readiness. Elsewhere, 1st Special Air Service enters Lübeck. Soon after, they link up with No. 30 Commando and press onward to Kiel. The objective is the rapid occupation of key Baltic ports before any organized German withdrawal or sabotage can take place. At Kiel, the 1st Special Air Service arrives in advance of the agreed surrender arrangements. Their speed threatens to disrupt diplomatic coordination. As a result, they are ordered to withdraw temporarily to avoid compromising the developing armistice negotiations. The war's end is now only hours away. News of capitulation reaches Frankfurt on May 4, 1945. At Großhansdorf, the men of 2 Special Air Service receive the announcement: all hostilities in northwest Germany, the Netherlands, and Denmark are to cease at 800 hours the following morning. For those in the field, it is a moment of relief more than celebration. 1 Special Air Service, still positioned in Kiel, receives the same news. Though the guns fall silent on May 5, 1945, the formal surrender of German forces is not concluded until May 7, 1945, when General Jodl signs the unconditional surrender in Reims. A second signing follows in Berlin on May 8, 1945. The war in Europe is officially over. That same day, May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day is observed by 1 Special Air Service in Belgium. Lieutenant Colonel Paddy Mayne, accompanied by B and C squadrons, arrives in Brussels to link up with A and D squadrons at a prearranged location in Poperinge, 110 kilometers west. On May 9, 1945, the full regiment reunites. The day ends in celebration. Belgian civilians join the gathering, and a spontaneous exchange of songs begins, first in Flemish and French, then English. Old First World War ballads rise among the voices. Civilians and soldiers sing together, marking peace not with ceremony, but with shared humanity. On May 10, 1945, both 1 and 2 Special Air Service are repatriated to Great Britain. Operation Archway, their last great campaign in Europe, has come to an end. Frankfurt has suffered 7 men killed: Trooper Fields, Trooper Blakeney, Trooper Glide, and Trooper Davies from 1st Special Air Service, Captain Morris, Sergeant Thorpe, and Private Boxall from 2nd Special Air Service. A further 22 are wounded across both regiments. The cost is real, the mission is complete, the war is over. That brings us to the conclusion of this episode and the end of Operation Archway, and the final combat operations of the Special Air Service in the European theatre. This operation was the culmination of years in the shadows, years of raids, sabotage, and reconnaissance behind enemy lines. It was the end of one chapter in the Special Air Service story, but not the end of the regiment itself. Thank you for listening to this 2-part series on Operation Archway. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and remember the men and women who moved unseen but changed the course of history. These stories remind us that the fate of entire campaigns often rested on the shoulders of small, elite units, those who led from the front, striking hard and holding fast in the face of overwhelming odds. Join us as we follow the courageous men and women who led this critical mission, from the adrenaline-filled moments of landing to the intense combat that secured these strategic points. Thank you for listening to the Special Forces in World War II podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Your support helps us continue to bring you more stories of courage, daring, and the unsung heroes of World War II. Be sure to tune in next time as we dive into yet another remarkable operation that helped shape the outcome of the war. Until then, keep your wits sharp, your courage steady, and remember, sometimes the most incredible victories come from the unlikeliest of places. See you in the next episode. I'm your host, Michael Wyers, signing off. And that concludes this mission briefing, fellow warriors of knowledge. We've navigated through the trenches of information, delving deep into the battlefields of history. As we wrap up this episode in our campaign for understanding, remember that knowledge is your most potent weapon. Stay vigilant and keep sharpening your intellectual arsenal. We'll rendezvous again for another episode, continuing our relentless pursuit of enlightenment. Until then, keep your mind sharp, your curiosity burning, and your determination unwavering. Simultaneously, you are hereby alerted to our outposts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, fortifying our information dissemination. Should you possess any pertinent intelligence to bolster our mission, transmit your findings with no hesitation. Your contributions shall be prominently acknowledged within the operational archives. Furthermore, for those prepared to provide substantial reinforcement, navigate to our Patreon forward base and enlist. Your support is integral to sustaining our forward thrust. Carry forth the legacy. Dismissed.